Ready to level up in 2025? Tune into Branding with Becks for insightful conversations, captivating guests, and practical tips. Whether you're on a walk, in the car, or getting ready in the morning, grab your headphones and let's dive into the world of branding together. We got it, guys. Reading sparks creativity as it opens up a world of imagination and possibility. It allows individuals to explore new ideas, perspectives, and concepts that may not typically be something they would encounter in their everyday lives. On today's podcast, we are sitting down with the famous book talker, Bryanna, who has been on our podcast before, and we are diving all into everything reading for 2025. Bryanna from Bryanna's Book Club is sharing her must-read reading list, and we are going through some tips and tricks about why we should read and how to get started in the new year if this is one of your resolutions. As always, I love to set the stage for you guys, and right now I am currently sipping a sparkling ice raspberry out of this very fancy wine glass, and I have one member of my fan club today with me in my home office. That is Mr. Binks, and he is currently sitting in one of my office chairs and just enjoying the ride for today's episode. So through the pages of a book, one can really travel to distant lands, meet diverse characters, and experience thrilling adventures. All of this can really help spark inspiration and innovation within your mind. The act of reading actually can help to stimulate some cognitive functions, including enhancing critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So these are some reasons why we should read, and I know as we're heading into the new year, a lot of you are maybe thinking of putting reading on that list. I feel like a lot of the times we're so tempted to just pick up our phone and doom scroll for hours, and instead of doing that, it would be definitely more beneficial, in my opinion, to pick up a book. I really wanted to have Bryanna back on the podcast because the last episode performed so well. You guys seem to really enjoy it. I think there's this whole world of book talk that's really emerging, and so many people are talking about it and are really interested in getting on the platforms to talk about the books that they're reading. And it's also a really great way to find authors and to connect with a sense of community. So as readers immerse themselves into these narratives and these rich descriptions, it's really encouraging to help think outside of the box. It helps to unlock your full creative potential and then also enrich your own artistic endeavors. So you may be thinking, okay, this all sounds great. Reading's awesome. Would love to do it, but I'm just so busy. Well, totally get it. And if you find it difficult to make time for reading, here are a few tips because I know it can be a struggle to allocate time within your busy life, but if it is something you really want to focus on this year, and I firmly believe that we can all benefit from reading and expanding our knowledge, here are 3 tips to get you started. First, consider setting a specific time each day dedicated solely to reading. This can be right when you wake up in the morning as you're sipping your morning coffee, or it can be in the evening before going to bed. This routine will help to make reading a natural part of your schedule and will help you to seamlessly integrate it into your day. Next, find a cozy reading environment. I think this can really help, especially as you're establishing and setting up your days for 2025. This can be finding a really nice comfy chair that you're excited to go and sit in after a long work day, or it can be maybe playing some soft music, pouring yourself a cup of tea, whatever it may be, that it comes with a kind of a little ritual that goes along with it, right? So you're setting up that structure so that way you can sit down and read your book. And lastly, I would say don't overwhelm yourself with large reading goals. I think it's great that everybody has their Goodreads account and they have all these amazing amount of books that they want to read throughout the year. But if you're just getting started, cut yourself some slack. Don't set the goal too high so that it's unattainable and it's stressful. I would say start with short stories or articles that really interest you and then gradually work your way up to larger and longer books. As you use these strategies, this can really help to transform your reading habits into a struggle or something that you see as a chore and make it a little bit more enjoyable and enriching, and hopefully you'll see some enhancements within your life. Before we dive into the podcast with Bryanna, I want to share a few more takeaways that have helped me in my own personal reading journey. First, I would say to stop reading a book that you're not interested in. I think too often we start a book and we're like, wow, this is okay, maybe it'll get better. And we force ourselves to sit down and read it, and then reading kind of feels like a chore. There are way too many great books that you can enjoy that will ignite your passion for reading and expand your knowledge in many meaningful ways. I would say to focus on books that inspire you, captivate your imagination, and bring joy to your reading experience. This helps you to really get excited for when it's time to read. My next tip is something that I don't do, but I should, and that is to use a free library or to try audiobooks. So you can explore a vast selection of books and access various resources within your community library. You can also look to audiobooks if you're someone like me that likes to either listen to things or whether it be a podcast, like your favorite podcast, Branding with Becks, or something that you can easily turn on while you're getting ready or on the go. And my last hot tip is that you should ditch the social media doom scroll and take advantage of your downtime in 2025. I will be the one to tell you that this is super important. I think we all need to implement this. You can read while you're in a waiting room, while you're in a long checkout line. If you always have a book with you, you'll always have something that's both entertaining and productive to do. This little habit stack is a great idea because too often we find ourselves grabbing our phones to fill that empty space and that spare time. And I think if we turn to reading, it will be so much more beneficial. On today's episode, we're talking with Bryanna about all things reading and also the 5 books you must read in 2025. With that, let's just dive right into the interview. All right. Thank you so much for being on the show for a second time, Bryanna. join us on another season of Branding with Becks. So let's take the audience back a little bit and provide a little background about what you do if they're new here. Can you tell us a little bit about you and also your book club?
Yeah, so my name's Bryanna. I am a book influencer on both TikTok and Instagram, but mostly on TikTok. My Instagram's still a little bit small, but I review books. I kind of just follow different trends, and yeah, I'm a big reader. So
Awesome. Yeah, and our last episode together performed really well. Our listeners really seemed to enjoy it, and I'm excited to dive more into reading. I wanted to focus on reading again as we head into a new year, and I found that reading seems to be on the list of many people's to do lists for 2025. And it helps to spark creativity, opens up a world of imagination and possibility, and it allows individuals to really explore new ideas and perspectives. I think we're also really commonly looking for ways to kind of eliminate screen time as much as possible and to try to kind of live in the real world and remove ourselves from the digital space. So I wanted to ask you first, why do you read? And why would you recommend it to anybody else?
I feel like reading for me, so I started reading again, like I would say about 2 years ago, and it started first off like as a form of therapy for me, but I feel like it has definitely evolved from where I was 2 years ago to where it is now. But back then, I used to like just use it as a way to like kind of escape, and I think that's what a lot of people do. They love to like read and like escape to new worlds, and I still love that aspect. But this year and last year, for sure, I've noticed that even though reading's been such a solo hobby, it allowed me to become more creative, more outgoing. I've made so many more friends this year that like it really just like grew like my inner circle. So I feel like I continue reading because I formed such good meaningful friendships now, which is definitely different than last time I was on the podcast because I was still like in that solo reading thing, but like now like I started a work book club. Already planned my monthly meetup for that. I've got trips to different bookstores across Florida. Like there's like so many things that I've done with so many friends, and I've met like local authors. Like last weekend for instance, I met up with local authors and we went out for like lunch, and it's like the reading community like grew, and I feel like now that
Mhm.
I took something that was so solo and like made it into like a bigger thing, and I love that, and I think that's why I'm going to continue doing it.
Yeah, that sounds great. I feel like a lot of people pick up a book because while they're like sitting at the beach reading by themselves or they're looking for something to fill the time. And we've seen, I think, with social media too, it's just a way to connect for whatever niche like you're focusing on. So really there's a community and a group for everyone in terms of like what your hobbies and interests are. And I think that that's also something that's great when it comes to the personal branding aspect of this podcast, like putting yourself out there. I feel like you might have met your community in other ways, but I think a big part of it probably had to do with sharing on social media about your reading journey, or at least learning from other people that have also shared their learning journey. So then that way you can kind of form those relationships with them. And I've noticed that, it's great to kind of take your mind off things. Yeah, it's a great way to take your mind off things, but then you also do have that other aspect of, hey, this is great. I can connect with other people that have a common interest that I do. Do you find that a lot of people have the same interest in terms of the type of books that you're reading, or is it more so like you just all love to read and that's why you're getting together?
I would say most of the people that I surround myself with have very similar reading styles. I feel like it's also just very popular right now, the same reading style. Like a lot of people like romance books, a lot of people like the fantasy romance books. It's just like I feel like almost people get like FOMO. So like they would start joining in,
Yeah.
and like everyone's been it's like very trendy right now to want to read those books, and the more popular they become, the more people start joining. So I feel like at work at least, like my book club, like a lot of the girls didn't read fantasy, and our first book is Fourth Wing, which is a fantasy romance. And I mean, they're obsessed now. They're like, "What's the next book? Like, what do I do? Like, tell me more things." And like, it's pretty interesting to see like how you can like just give people like a different genre, for instance, and they might like it, and it's outside of their normal one. But yeah, I would say most of my friends and the most of the people I surround myself with all stem around the same books. I am kind of a mood reader, so I jump all over the place. So while I primarily read like romance and fantasy, I read like classical fiction too, like completely outside of the like that genre. Like I'll do everything. I tend to like just like go based on my mood. So it kind of
Yeah.
depends. But for the most part, I would say the biggest are like romance and fantasy.
Yeah, I definitely see those trending. I mean, at least I see from like Instagram stories and things like that. It seems like the same book cover will go pretty
Yeah.
viral throughout. Like, there'll be like a week where everybody's reading one thing or something new comes out and they're so excited about it. And then you also told me too, it's funny because when I see people sharing about it, I always tend to like share it with you
Yeah.
and send it over. And there was one book and you were like, oh, well, she like applied to get it ahead of time. So like, how does that work? Can you like read books before they're
Yeah.
released or is it just like a select group of people that get to do that?
So anyone can do it actually. So there's a few ways you can. So some people get advanced reader copies of books. I know exactly what you're talking about. So she went through Book of the Month, and Book of the Month will sometimes give books a little bit earlier than release day. So the book that she had
Okay.
actually came out, I'm pretty sure, like today. So sometimes you'll get it a little bit earlier, but you can get advanced reader copies of books like sent to your Kindle, or you can get physical ones. Getting physical ones is a lot more difficult because you have to like contact publishers and they have to like see you and actually send it to you. You know what I mean?
Oh
But
yeah.
there's like a website, NetGalley is a big one, and you can make an account. It's completely free, and you kind of like build your own profile. So the more you review, you get like a rating, and like the more you'll be accepted. So like you'll get like newer releases, and you can request books. You can, and like it'll ask you why you're requesting it, like a little drop down menu, and you might get approved, you might get denied. I mean, I get approved and denied all the time. One time I
Wow.
requested like 50 books and like 20 of them were approved. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I have to review all these books. So I would
So,
say,
so you would have to submit. So like you're accepting the books, but then you would provide like
yeah, so
early
you're
reviews for
accepting
them
the,
before it goes out.
yes, so that's the whole point. So you're reading as an advanced reader. So you're reading to review it for like so like it's out there. So basically you're getting a free book in support of a review.
That's awesome. Are these a lot of like self-publishing books, or is it usually through like a big publisher that does this?
It's like all different publishers. It's
Okay.
honestly pretty big authors. It's like every I've seen some like indie authors and I've also seen just like there's like a ton of like really popular ones. Like a few of my favorite books that are like from really popular authors I got advanced reader copies of.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. So I know it's something that is a stressor or a little bit difficult for people to get into reading is that it's hard for them to, I guess, allocate or find the time. And I think that that's something that we see as people are like, oh, I have so many, I'm very ambitious as I head into the new year and I have all these books I want to read 100 books or whatever it may be. And then they look at their calendar, they go to work, they come back and they're like, I'm exhausted. I just want to put on a reality TV show or whatever it may be. It does kind of seem like, as you're talking though, that these books have now become, because of how trendy it's become, the books have kind of filled that spot for you and for many people in the book talk community. So instead of maybe catching up with the latest TV show or Game of Thrones, whatever it may be, people are turning to books and reading those to kind of stay within that community and up to date on the latest trends. So some tips I would say maybe like setting a specific time, finding a cozy environment, reading books that are entertaining to them. Do you have any other tips that you can share with our audience who may not know where to start?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know where to start, I would just say go to a bookstore. It doesn't even have to be a bookstore. Go to Walmart and like pick out a book. Sometimes bookstores are a little intimidating at first, but just like go and like find a book that like catches your eye and then pick it up and just like try to read the first page. And like you don't have to read chapters after chapters every single day. Like you can literally read a page and like just do your own pace. I told one of my coworkers that is not a reader about a book the other day, and she came in today. She's like, I bought the book and I read 10 pages, and she was so excited. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, 10 pages is a lot of pages.
Yeah.
So she was like, I just stopped at like the end of a paragraph and like I'm gonna get back to it tonight. So you have to find your own time. Like if you prioritize watching TV, then that's what you're gonna do. I don't like watching TV, so I read on my Kindle or a physical book. The Kindle also just makes it really, really convenient. So like I bring my Kindle, like I literally have it right here. Like I literally bring it like everywhere with me. It's always in my purse. So if I have any free moment, I'll literally just like open up my Kindle and like read a page and then like go back to what I was doing. I find time, I read a lot of books last year. I read 560 books last year, which is probably a little bit of a problem,
It's
but
awesome. That is a
it's
lot
just
of books, but that's awesome.
instead of like scrolling on my phone or watching TV, I'll do that. Audiobooks are also great for people. I do some audiobooks, especially like if I'm like on a long drive, I'll do an audiobook just because I get bored of music sometimes. And then even in the gym, sometimes I'll do an audiobook over like music because sometimes
I
I
feel
just
like
get bored of
audio
it.
is kind of like
So,
podcasting. Yeah. Like
yeah,
you could kind of
I
just
think
put on a
it's
podcast or
especially
put on a book.
Yeah, I feel like audiobooks, like there's definitely certain books that are better on audio than others. Like I don't really like doing romance books on audio. I like doing like more thrillers because I feel like I'm listening to like an episode of Crime Junkies.
Right, right.
And then I'll do like certain books are just better. And also it depends on like who's narrating the book too. But there's also something called graphic audio, which is like a new form of audiobooks, and it's basically a movie production but for your ears. So it's a full cast. Every character is different. There's music in the background. Like if like a fork drops in the
Wow.
book, you'll hear the fork drop. It's so cool. It's kind of expensive. Some of them are free, but they can be a little pricey, but it's amazing. I have a friend who like cannot read books. Like she like just can't get through like a page because she just can't concentrate. So one of the graphic audiobooks of a really popular book was on. I said you should try it out. She consumed the whole
Yeah.
series in like 2 days. I mean, she just like didn't stop
Wow.
listening.
Is
She's
it
like, this was the
take this
coolest thing.
long?
No, I mean, you could change the speed on them too. So like
Okay. Mhm.
read audiobooks very fast. Like if people are gonna think I'm crazy, but I'll read it on like 2 to 2.5 speed. But that's how fast my brain works. So some
That's
people have to
awesome.
read it slower, but get the speed down. So it really just depends on the person, but you can adjust it.
Yeah, that sounds great. I put it on like 1.5 speed or like as
Yeah.
a minimum because I always just like to listen to things quicker. I think this is another good tip. Sometimes when I'm trying to read something and maybe I'm not super interested in the book, I notice that I will start to speed read it. And I think something I want to work on this year is if I'm not interested in the book to just put it down and not like waste my time trying to finish to read it. So many other books out there that it can get a little bit
Yeah.
discouraging if you're reading one that's like not your scene. Love that tip about ditching the social media doom scroll too. Instead of picking up your phone, picking up your Kindle. I think that's a great tip as well. I was just listening to a podcast, and I think it's Elvis Presley's daughter, and her Elvis Presley's daughter passed away. She was started to write a book, and then her daughter finished the book for her. Apparently,
Okay.
that book on audio is actually Julia Roberts is actually the voice of Elvis Presley's daughter in the book. So Elvis Presley's granddaughter actually said that she thought the audio was like preferred for you to listen to it. She said it was that good.
I definitely have some books that are like that. Like, actually, I have a book on my bookshelf that I found it because I don't know where it is, of course, but it's called I think The Animal. But I was gonna read it, but then I saw that Emma Roberts actually narrates it, and she like raves about the book. So I was like, oh, like I like her like in TV shows and movies, so like I'll give it a shot. So I like did it. It was amazing. Like I don't think I can like listen to it without Emma Roberts not narrating it. She did so good. I
Yeah.
like hear it that way now. Like she like was the character. Like that was just perfect. But it's kind of cool because like Emma Roberts is like a big actress. So like it kind of worked out because it was almost like I was like watching a movie.
Yeah, I think that can go either way too, because I feel like with books, I like to sometimes visualize my own characters, and then when it gets converted into a movie, I'm not enthusiastic about the whatever actress they pick. Sometimes it works out great, and I'm like, oh wow, she really fit the role. Other times I'm not as enthusiastic. It ends with us being a prime example, but I think that's also happened too with Beauty and the Beast, like when they made what's her name,
Yeah.
Hermione from Harry Potter, when they
Yeah.
made her Belle, it was a little bit too recognizable for me.
Like I agree. If it's a big like actor or actress, like if they ever like they are planning to do the adaptations of Fourth Wing and like A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I'm like praying they don't use big actresses and big actors because if I see like someone I recognize, I'm be like, no, like you are not them, and I know it might like that's just like what they do. And I can't. It's not gonna be a perfect cast, but like I don't want to recognize them. I want them to almost be like
Right.
people I don't know, so I can like create whole new people in my head. But yeah, it also depends on just the style of book. If like Emma Roberts was narrating, I don't know, a different romance book, I probably wouldn't like it. But it was a fiction book, so it really worked out because it was more her style.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah,
worked.
I think Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
I think Anne Hathaway is going to be in the new Colleen Hoover movie, right? Was that
Yes.
who it was?
I think,
I
yeah.
think it was. Which,
Verity. Yeah.
I, yeah, and she's going to be in Verity. So I feel like they are picking really big actresses for a lot of these. But I
Yeah.
also think, but it might be because there is such a trend to read now that in order for these Hollywood stars to stay famous, they got to adapt with the times and be in these live
I
action
think so.
movies. Because I honestly feel like a lot of movies aren't the ones that are really popular seem to be the ones that are coming from books. So,
Yeah.
at
There's
least
so
from what
many
I've
like
seen.
so many books coming. Like almost every Emily Henry book is coming to TV. Like there's so many books coming
Oh,
out.
those were cute stories. I
They
read,
are
yeah,
like
you gave
Beach
me one of
Read.
those that I read over the
I think
summer. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's either Beach Read or Book Lovers, one of those is becoming a movie, and the cast actually looks pretty good. I don't know the people, so it works out really well for me. But like it like works with who's in the book. I love when they can like try to match the book characters. I hate when they like make a whole new character. I don't like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I know. I think
certain
it
books are
ends with Much
way
did that too.
yeah, but
I'm sorry,
some
what was
books just
that?
are so much better on, I said so much, some books are just so much
Yeah.
better on audio. There's just like some books that are like really funny and like when you hear it, like you're actually like cracking up, but like when you're reading it, it's not as funny. I've read a few books on, well, I listened to a few books on audio that I definitely would prefer on audio.
Yeah, I think it helps to kind of break up where you're supposed to pause, or like sometimes when you read through it, at least even just reading blogs or people's Instagram captions, if it's funny, if I through it too fast, it doesn't sound as funny anymore. So I think getting to the punchline is helpful when there is an actor and actress actually speaking it for you.
I definitely
Um, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, audiobooks is definitely something I want to try. Sometimes it's hard for me too to like sit down and pick up a book and read it, like, or my mind's racing or whatever it may
agree. Yeah.
be. And then sometimes I'm like, I can't focus. It's hard to focus on the page. So I really like the idea of trying audiobooks. That's something I want to try in the new year. And I also want to stay on top of my Goodreads account because I never updated that throughout last year. So that's definitely something I want to do. I like created it. I was like, this is going to be great. I'm so stoked. I can do this. And then every time I finished a book, I would just forget to upload it. So I just,
I feel like my
yeah.
Goodreads is like a part of me. Like I literally could not forget about it because I
Well, I get your notifications to my email address. So I know when you
oh,
finish your
goodness,
book.
Brayden finished another one. Like she's
It
on a
does. It's
roll.
like Bryanna finished reading. Bryanna wrote a review. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's crushing it. And I'm over here all in the same book from 3 months ago,
I
but it is
know.
what it
I went to like one of the openings of a new bookstore and they like walked up to me and they're like, "So what's your goal for next year?" Because they all follow my Goodreads. And I'm like, "I
is.
just set
Yeah.
it for
Well, how
100.
many books?
Start small."
100? I feel like you're definitely gonna hit that within like January,
I
probably. So
probably will. I mean, I'm already at 7, so and it's January 7th, so that's what I think. But
that's pretty good. You could get
yeah.
365 in before the end of the year. I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
this
I
isn't
did
one.
560 last year, so
That is awesome. So yeah, I also think I want to switch it up a little bit with my reading. I feel like a lot of my books have been nonfiction or business books. After like working all day and then doing this blog and podcast, I don't know why I still gravitate to books that are around the same exact topics. So definitely want to switch that up. I feel like I was in the Colleen Hoover vibe for a while where I was reading all of those and those were good, but then after a while I was like, all right, all these stories are starting to kind of
the
sound
same.
the same to me. So I had to like, yeah. I mean, I will say, what was the one? Was it Layla?
That was one
That
of
was
her best
different.
ones in my opinion. I like that one. That
Yeah,
was like the ghosty one. Yeah.
that was like kind of spooky, but I feel like that was the most different from all the other ones. The other ones
Yeah.
kind of had the same vibe.
Yeah,
That one I
like you
think
kind of
was
know
one that
what was
really
gonna
stood out
happen.
to me because I was hoping she was going to make that into a movie, but you never know, maybe one day. As you're looking into your new year and you have 100 books on your list, are there any books that you read in 2024 or books that you were planning to read in 2025 that you think everyone should pick up a copy for?
Yes, definitely. But it's gonna be like a little bit over like a 5 books.
All
I'll
right,
break it
feel
up
free.
by
Let's hear 'em.
I'll break it up by genre because I think that'll be a little easier. So whoever's watching, like if they have a specific genre they like, they can go based off that. Also, reading is very subjective, so these are books just I like. Not everyone's gonna like them. I like to always throw that disclaimer out because, you know. So for fiction books, one of my favorite books of 2024 was Blue Sisters by Coco Mellers. I don't have the physical copy because I did get an advanced reader copy of it, but I plan to get the physical because it was so good. But it is a story about like sisterhood and it is there's like grief and like some trauma, but it follows each sister and shows like how they overcome each of like their own like issues, but like for like the main plot. And it shows like how one thing can affect everyone so differently and like how they come together in the end and like like kind of help each other out. And it was just so beautifully written. She's an amazing author. So I definitely recommend that book. For fantasy, this one was a little difficult for me to like pick an actual book because I always break up fantasy by like fantasy and then romantic fantasy. So for romantic
Right.
fantasy, which is like more of my style, I would definitely pick two, and they're the two most popular out right now. And it follows like a huge like if you start that book, like good luck. There's a bunch of books out there. You're gonna be stuck for a while, but um,
I have
and
seen
then
that
I would say
cover so many times.
So many times,
Fourth
yeah.
Wing.
And then I would
Okay.
say Fourth Wing. I think this one, so it's very like almost Game of Thronesy, but like not that severe. I haven't seen Game of Thrones, but it's like that aspect how there's like dragons and stuff. Um, and it's also there is a romance in it. It is a little bit spicy, so it's pretty good. And I think it's so easy, and like the plot twist at the end is just incredible. That like you're like, okay, where's the next book? And the third one's actually coming out this month. So,
Would you say fantasy is like scary or like the medieval Game of Thrones vibe? I know you haven't seen it, but it's like gory. Is
not
that how it?
gory. I would say it depends on the fantasy, but like romantic fantasy, not really. It's definitely
Awesome.
easy to get into. And
Maybe I'll.
then yeah, I think honestly, I think you would like it. It's like a pretty good one. And
I feel
then
like I need something different to read. Like I said, I'm trying to expand what I'm reading. Currently, it's a lot of the same type of books, so I would like to try to dive into something new. I also think historical fiction is probably something I would enjoy reading, so something like that.
I think you would like a lot of the Kristen Hanna books, Bex, because they're historical fiction and they're so like amazing and beautifully written. Like The Nightingale is
Mhm.
like such an amazing book, and same with The Great Alone. I read all of Kristen Hanna books, and she's like the best historical fiction like author I've read. She's
Oh, I'll
amazing.
have
I
to
think you really
look
really
into
like
that
that.
for sure.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if you've ever seen the isn't it a movie? I think it's a movie. Firefly Lane.
Yes. Was that a TV show?
Did you see that? I
Yes.
think it's a TV show, maybe. That's based off a Kristen Hanna book.
Yeah, that movie, that I mean that series was really good from when we watched it.
Whatever it is. Yeah,
So
yeah.
great. I'll have
And
to pick
then
those up.
I have, so I'm like the opposite. So I don't read much nonfiction. I used to do like a lot of like self-help books and stuff like that, but I found they did the like reverse effect for me and they made me a worse person. So I stopped doing those.
Okay.
But I am doing 75 hard, so I have to read nonfiction for 75 hard. So
Right.
I am reading this book right here, which is called Three Women. It's by Lisa Taddeo, and I'm really liking it. I think it reads as a fiction book, so it's easy to read if you're a fiction reader trying to get into nonfiction. And
Hmm.
then another nonfiction book I would recommend is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I don't have the book, but it's a memoir, and it's really, really good. And I gave that 5 stars. I didn't even know it was like a memoir until I finished it.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was really good.
Must be good for a
Um,
5-star rating.
yeah, super, super good. Yeah, it was on Kindle Unlimited too, so that's also another plus.
Yeah.
And then, and for, what was that?
Oh, I was just gonna say, books can get like so it gets kind of pricey after a while when you start like buying them and you read through them as fast, especially as fast as you do. So I did have Kindle Unlimited at one point,
Yeah,
and some of the titles I couldn't really get into, but I think I might dive into that a little bit more again. I do like thrift books though, just so I can get like a tangible copy of a book. I think that's always a little bit more motivational for me to read if I'm like actually holding it. I can kind of turn the page and see how far I have
yeah,
left to go. But
yeah. I
um,
see your progress.
yeah, I like to see my progress. Like that little bar at the bottom of the Kindle just isn't enough. I need to physically move it over.
Yeah.
But yeah, so are a lot of these books that you're talking about mostly the physical copy, or you can grab them on the Kindle too?
Honestly, there's so many popular books on Kindle Unlimited now that you could probably just get Kindle Unlimited and like read all the popular books
Mhm.
without really ever having to like pay for a book. You
Oh
can
wow.
also pay for books on Kindle that aren't on Kindle Unlimited, but there's so many popular books on Kindle
Mhm.
now that like I mean I read so many new releases that just go automatically right to Kindle Unlimited. So I would say most of my books come from Kindle Unlimited just because I can't afford to pay for all of the books I read.
You read so many books. But that is awesome. Are there any other titles that you would say for 2025?
Yes. I so for what other genres are there? For romance, that's another good one.
Mhm.
Romance, I would recommend anything by Abby Jimenez. I think she's really good. She does like a little bit of a like a lot of her characters are like nurses or doctors or whatever. So I'm a nurse, so it kind of like I like that little aspect. It kind of draws me to the characters. She always has like a deeper little plot to it too. My favorite by her is Just for the Summer. I just don't have it physically because again, I got an arc of that. But this is Part of Your World, which is another like amazing one by her. And then she also has Yours Truly. That's another
That's
part
I
of the
think that's the one
series.
I read.
I
Yours
think I gave
truly.
you.
Someone needed like a
Yeah,
kidney.
yeah,
Was that the book?
yes,
Okay. Yes,
yes.
that
I
was a
think it
good
was her
one.
brother.
That was a good one.
Yeah. And then this is also romance, but it's it's more new adult. New adult is like when they're like turning like 18.
Okay.
So it's kind of young adult, it's kind of new adult,
Mm-hmm.
but it's Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This book it's literally incredible. It's like my Roman Empire like romance book, and it is like so incredibly sad. I would not recommend it for you, Bex. I think you would cry too much.
Yeah, I can't. I'm too emotional.
Yeah.
I cry at reels. Like I like sent you a
I
reel the other
know.
day and I'm sobbing at like a reel of someone kissing a dog.
It gets really sad.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, there's so much like deep like just not good stuff, like very tragic stuff that happens, but it's so good. Like the book itself is so good. So I definitely recommend that. And then
Wait, so if you can get through that, I have a nonfiction for you really quick now that I'm thinking about it because
oh,
you have to read.
okay.
So
Okay.
it
Which one?
is called Scar Tissue and it's about Anthony from the Red Hot Chili Peppers and he wrote it. It was
Okay.
so
Okay,
yeah.
I'm gonna add that to my list.
Yeah, I have it if you want to borrow it, but it's
Okay.
his
Cool.
childhood and life was like really hard to read. But it's
Yeah.
interesting because he's a famous member of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But it is not the easiest book to get through. But if you can get through like the sad stuff, it is even more tough because it's like a real person. But if you can get through it, I
Yeah.
think you'd like the book because it is pretty interesting
I
and
like that.
rock and roll back in the day too. So it's like how he got into it and
It's kind of interesting.
the 70s
Yeah,
and
I'll have to
everything,
borrow it.
very different time than now. So it's kind of cool to read about it. But
Yeah, very true.
all right, sorry, back to your list. I just
Yeah.
saw that one.
And then thriller books, I would do Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. She's the person that wrote Gone Girl. I don't know
Got
if
it.
you've seen
Yes,
that.
I did read that
It's a
one.
yeah, it's also like a big I think it's a movie, Gone Girl. This
It,
is also a TV show. Sharp Objects is a TV show. And then back to like the fantasy sci-fi kind of stuff. I always like to recommend books for guys because I know I recommend a lot of books for girls.
mhm.
If I was gonna recommend a book for a guy to read, I would say either Red Rising or Dune. And then another one that I don't have that I did the audio of, which again, this is a book that I think you have to do the audio of, is
Okay.
Project Hail Mary. It's the person that wrote The Martian. So that's also a movie. And
Oh,
it's
right, yeah.
phenomenal. Honestly, you might like it too. It's
Mhm.
so good. But I gave this one to my boyfriend on the plane, and he got to chapter 13, and he doesn't read.
Wow,
So
must be good.
it's like pretty incredible. Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
pretty good. So I would definitely recommend those if like a guy wanted to start reading too.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
But
I
yeah,
feel like
those would be the books I think.
that's a good list. It's definitely a good start. I'll probably gonna avoid the sad one, but the other ones I'll definitely add. The romance fantasy ones all over, and I know I have to pick up a copy because everybody's raving about it being such a good book. So we'll definitely be looking into that.
Yeah.
Um, and so as we wrap up, I just wanted to see if you have any more tips and tricks in terms of if someone says, okay, I'm going to get started reading or they want to join the book talk community. Do you have any tips for someone looking to maybe put themselves out there online? And because I feel like it has helped in so many ways with your reading journey. You've connected with so many people and you're able to just continue to share what you've read, what you're excited about reading. But if someone's looking to maybe join in, if they've been a reader for a while or they're just getting started, how did you go about getting started and what tips could you offer?
I mean, I guess I was like a silent watcher of like the book talk community on TikTok for a long time, and then I just was like, you know what? Let's just make the account.
Mm-hmm.
And you just gotta make the account. And I'm not like super like I'm active on it, but like I'm not the person that's posting 3 times a day. I'm not gonna like obviously I could grow definitely faster if I was, but sometimes you lose your creativity. So I would just
Yeah.
say have fun with it. It's definitely like your platform for fun and like making friends and like creating a community. So the second it becomes like too much for you, just like take a step back and just like post what you want to post. Like you don't have to post like what's trending. You don't have to post like talking videos of you reviewing books. You could post pictures. I do a lot of like photos and like little things that I make on CapCut and like Canva, and a lot of people really like those. And you could just like find your own style and just post what you want to post. But it's a great way to like ask for recommendations, and if you have a really good recommendation, it's a great way to put that out there too. It's also a great way to like help like small business and stuff because there's so many independent authors that are now on TikTok, so you can like develop like a personal connection with like an independent author and read their books and kind of spread their books out there too. But I would just say just make the account. Like I mean,
Yeah.
literally what's the worst that happens?
Yep,
What I mean?
exactly. Exactly. And I love that tip that you shared about creating content. That is something that you are interested in creating, not creating just because it's something trendy or because you feel like you have to create it. And one of the trends actually for 2025, and I think we're going to see a lot of this is just a prediction, is instead of the URL, it's the IRL. So events in real life, going to the physical bookstore, having that book club, like you mentioned, having that sense of community. I think we're going to see a big trend to that. People miss that. We kind of lost our way a little bit back in, 2020 and everything, where everybody kind of took everything to the virtual side. And I feel like we're going to see a trend shift backwards where it's going to be more in person, more conversations. And as you're developing these communities online, taking it into real life is probably going to be so much more fulfilling because you're able to meet people in person. But also, just something to keep in mind too. It's all about building that community. And even if it's just one person or two people or three people that like your posts, picture that those people in the room with you. That's pretty impressive. So definitely something to keep in mind, I think, if someone's looking to get started.
It is.
Awesome. So as we wrap up
No,
this,
definitely.
great. So as we wrap up this episode, if you could let everybody know where they can find you if they're looking to follow along on your book talk journey, to connect with you online, and maybe join your book club if they're local.
Yeah, so on Instagram it's at Breeze Book Club, and then on TikTok it's at Breeze Book Club 2. And that's my only two links. I don't think I have any others. Other than
Awesome.
Goodreads is at Breeze Book Club as well. You could add me as a friend.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was gonna say it's cool because you can see exactly what you're reading and then your reviews of your books too as you go through them. And I think we covered those platforms. All right, well, thank you so much, Bryanna, for being on the show again. I really appreciate it, and I'm so excited to share this episode. There's so many great takeaways, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much for having me again. Becks, was a great time.